In this episode, we're going to talk to Coach Raymond about something that you hear about when you start carnivore. You hear people talking about rendered fat. And I remember when I first started, people kept saying, "Oh, well, you might not like rendered fat," and I never knew what they were talking about. So, Coach Raymond, what is rendered fat?
So rendered fat is when the fat gets liquid on high temperature. So what happens is it becomes so your hard fat just becomes liquid, and that's why it's called rendered fat. It's also known as tallow, lard, um, and whatever liquid comes from any fats that can be an issue and can cause an issue.
So, what do you mean cause an issue?
So what happens is for some reason the body doesn't seem to tolerate rendered fat very well, but hard fat it tolerates it very well. So for an example, if you ate beef fat off a ribeye, you'll notice on a ribeye when either you put it on the stovetop and fry it there and sear it on both sides, the thick part of the fat doesn't get cooked, or it's just warm, which is great because it's still solid form. The body knows how to handle that. Now, let's say you fried it on both sides and you notice all that liquid on the bottom and you decide to pour that liquid on top and you decide to eat that and you feel uneasy. And the way you know that you have an issue with rendered fat is you get queasiness after you eat or during the time you eat. You feel kind of bleh, like you want to almost vomit. Um, and that's all the rendered fat. Your body doesn't know how to handle that kind of energy in this. What it is it's going through your body too fast, so the body doesn't know what to do with it. Liquid, pretty much liquid energy. With the hard fat's a little different. It's got to break it down itself, takes a little time, and it's actually capable of using the fats properly to go through your body. So, but with the liquid fats, it goes down to your body too fast. So sometimes it just feels like it needs to upchuck it. Also, it can cause diarrhea.
Oh,
So that's
yeah.
something else to watch out for when we overdo it with that.
Yeah, I definitely know it. It not only feeling nauseous like that, but I definitely have had diarrhea from eating rendered fat. So is it something that some people can just handle better than others, right?
That's what I've noticed. I can't handle it. Now, what's interesting is beef bone broth is, how if you make bone broth in your own crock pot and the layer of fat that's on top of it, that's all rendered fat. So when you scoop it up, typically Vietnamese places actually take out the top fat and reboil it and then take out the top fat again. They do that like 3 times
Hmm.
and then before they even serve it. The reason being is that a lot of people have issue with the rendered fats, and it also makes them not feel very well.
Oh.
So, but bone broth is great for you. Problem is the rendered fat on top is not as good. But yes, some people tolerate fine. You just need to find out whether you tolerate or not. Another issue that I want to mention is ground beef. So some people keep saying, I just don't feel really good with ground beef. I just feel much better with a steak. Well, the reason that you don't feel good with a ground beef is possibly because you're cooking up your ground beef and you're letting it soak back in that fat, or you'll insist on drinking the fat to get more fats in. That's not the way to get your fats in if you have problems with rendered fats. So the better way would be to drain out that fat and maybe add like a tablespoon of butter on top of it afterwards. Now, what's interesting, rendered butter, so butter in a liquid form, doesn't seem to have this kind of reaction.
Wow,
Mainly beef fat.
oh, that's so true. Because I remember when I was eating a lot of ground beef and I would let it sit in the rendered fat and I would try to eat it like wet like that, I would feel sick. So that's why, because
Yes.
you're letting it just kind of like soak it back up again.
Yes.
Do you think that the rendered fat is actually less, like it, since you're saying it sounds like the body doesn't process it as well. So do you think it's actually inferior in terms of its nutrition compared to just eating fat?
That's a good question. I mean, technically, it would be considered denatured, but
Mm.
I really honestly think because fat is an energy source, and any liquid energy. So we're talking about whether it's your soda drink or rendered fat or any of that. It's very fast fuel going through your body, and your body has to know how to handle that pretty quickly. And sometimes it finds it too dangerous. So it doesn't know how to control the speed of that fat in your body or digest it in enough proper time. And I think that's what causes the main issue. As far as nutrient wise, if you can handle rendered fat, you probably are getting the fat that you need.
Mm, okay, that
So
makes sense. But I mean, if it's going through super fast, it's not as likely to get absorbed and used if your body doesn't know how to process it, right?
exactly the problem. That's right.
Ah, that makes sense of why when I switched to ribeye, why I was doing so much better because I probably wasn't even getting enough fat because it was just like I didn't like it and it was like going through me in a way that
Yes.
okay. So,
And
oh, go
that's probably why it works. Is some people don't have the problem. Let's say they're younger and their metabolism works the way it's supposed to. They can handle this quick source of fats. The older we get, so most what I've noticed is older folks having this issue, or people with bowel issues definitely have this issue.
Now, just one last thing, you had mentioned when you cook the steak, how it has the fat kind of it doesn't render all the way down, but it's still like kind of gloppy. Like I don't
Yeah,
like the fat, so that's not considered rendered, but it's kind of almost like semi rendered, right? Where it still can make you feel kind of sick,
it
right?
can. No, you're absolutely right. It's got that glob on there, and that can definitely be an issue. A lot of people don't eat that, but also the question becomes: is it the connective joint that's the issue, or the actual fat that's been rendered down? And I'm not sure what the answer to that is.
Okay, so
So
bottom line, if you don't tolerate rendered fat, you should just basically avoid it, not like try to adapt to it, right?
that's right. I would not adapt to it. Your body just can't handle it. It can't handle it. I do know that the body can handle raw fats very, very well. As a matter
Okay,
of fact, if you want to cut off your chunk of beef fat and use that raw, all the better.
great. Well, thank you for this bite, Coach Raymond.
Thank you, Janice.